Start my entrepreneurial journey, I knew now is the time when I can take these risks. I don't want to be 60 and close to retirement and be like, man, I never did anything. I never tried anything. Yeah. So let's do it now.
Welcome back, everybody. Rich Brigger, Shanghai-based social entrepreneur. Just had a great conversation with Chris, who is an individual trying to find his way into this as what he hopes will be a co-founder. The conversation we'll have is about finding that individual, finding that path forward, so that at the end of the day, the impact that he's looking for can bear fruit. All right, so Chris, thank you very much for taking time. Tell me a little about yourself and how you ended up here in Saigon.
My story actually starts in China. I first moved to Shanghai in 2007. I lived in China for 11 years, 12 years, 6 in Beijing and 5 in Shanghai. I got started in the education sector, higher education and early childhood education and K-12. But fast forwarding really quickly through the China piece of my story, I found myself a few years ago facing a really difficult sort of personal situation and, second phase of my career, I would say. And as a kind of a mature student, I decided I was going to take some time and go back to school and do a full-time MBA. And when most people went and did their summer internship, I chose instead to sort of ship off to Nairobi and help an ed tech company there raise money. But I spent 4 months there, really loved my experience. Then I went back to LBS to do my last semester of business school, where I met 2 startups that I was interested in. One was founded by an Indonesian woman in the admissions consulting space. I wanted to help her. I wanted to, give her whatever experience that I had from China and Southeast Asia. But at that time, I didn't really think that the proposition was right for me. I ended up going and joining a different group of Nordic entrepreneurs. And they had run trials in Peru and in Brazil and also in Morocco. And they were looking to expand their first operation into Vietnam. We successfully opened the kindergarten. And it's now operating. There's a couple of classes, around 30 students. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out. After 5-6 months, I found myself kind of back to the drawing board. I'm now on this entrepreneurial journey, but I actually didn't have a project.
Sounds a lot like you are pursuing a path, or at least the first steps are really surrounding yourself as almost a number 2. Like, not that you see yourself as a number 2 in the organization, but you're number 2, like your employee or the first believer in the organization.
Even as I started to think about myself as an entrepreneur, I never really saw myself as like the guy who had an idea. And I definitely didn't want to be the one to crawl through the sludge and make something happen from absolutely nothing. And so my whole foray into entrepreneurship has always been, I'm not looking for an idea, I'm looking for partners. Okay. I'm looking for people that I can work with who we're aligned, we have the same values, we kind of operate in the same sector, and we both bring different complementary pieces to the puzzle.
In the conversations you've had, not just the 2 that probably have gone the furthest, but in others, what is it that draws you to a particular entrepreneur?
Usually, it's like a gut feeling. I mean, it's really intuitive. If something needs to be done, they immediately turn around and they've got like a 15-point to-do list every day and they do 25 of them. That's the kind of person that I want to work with, because I'm more of like a slow, strategic kind of thinker, and I take some time to gestate the ideas. But then once I kind of build up all that gumption, I know I can deploy it, and I know I can speak about it sort of impromptu for a long time. So people who have prior experience in entrepreneurship, who have either raised money before or who have been involved in early stage, and they know, they're prepared for the challenge of what's ahead.
How much does your emotion play into this? It's very easy to have a coffee, a drink, a first cut, and you're like, oh my God. But then 3 months, 6 months down the line, you're like, no, this is a very different person or organization than I thought.
I think so much of it is emotion, right? I mean, each different experience you obviously learn from the past ones. They're all emotional in their own way, but it's like as you go from the first experience to the second to the third, it's no longer like, oh, this is purely adrenaline driven and this, we're so excited, this is a match made in heaven, and then 2 months later it's a divorce. Now it's more like, okay, we really connect, but when the shit hits the fan, are you going to be able to deal with it? Am I going to be able to deal with it? Are we going to be able to navigate those sort of highs and lows together? And really looking at the resilience of the individual that I'm talking to, and also can that person support me emotionally when I go through a low time? Because I've definitely had already some low times in my entrepreneurial journey, and I know how important it is to not be lonely, to have someone that who really understands what you're trying to do, and you're doing it together. You know, you're not just like facing these night terrors every day. You know, it's like.
So talk to me about night terror. This is something that's becoming a conversation, fortunately, more and more. And through my channel, I've talked about it with myself and with others. But what has this been for you? Because, no offense, it seems like it'd be a little bit different if you're number 2 and having night sweats than number 1 having night sweats. So how do you see it? How do you feel it? What are you going through?
Whenever I have a night terror, whenever I'm facing like a really difficult situation with a venture that I'm involved in, it's always like, Jesus, what am I doing? Like, why have I chosen to? Why do I continuously choose to make my life more difficult than it has to be? And why do I keep saying no to the easy path? You know, like. It's like I refuse to allow someone to pay me a high salary to do something very simple and easy for this challenge of like doing it on my own, or like starting something, or having kind of an imprint on the business that I know I can't have if I work for a big corporate.
But is that also like maybe the mission of the organization, like high money stability, which are attractive to probably 99% of the world, but the mission isn't there, versus mission is there, solving like your own, like what you feel core to yourself, but it's lacking the other two things. Like, is that the trade-off that you see? And right now you're happy to take mission as the payment or the payoff, as it were?
I think at the moment, I'm able to put the money to one side. I'm not a wealthy man, but I don't worry about where I'm going to sleep and what I'm going to eat tomorrow. And I can do that for a little while. Started to start my entrepreneurial journey, I knew now is the time when I can take these risks. I don't want to be 60 and close to retirement and be like, man, I never did anything. I never tried anything. Yeah. So let's do it now. Like, and the worst case is that I go out and I fail a bunch of times and I go back and get a job, and all those things that I learned, they have to serve me even in the corporate world. If I ever end up back there, hopefully I don't.
Tell me a little about like Asia. How do you see social innovation, social entrepreneurship here? What has kept you in the region and now is driving you in towards this model? Like, what's going on here that the audience should know about?
I feel like as an entrepreneur, I should have a really good answer to that question. But ultimately, my actions are driven more by what I want to do and where I think that I can be most effective. I've been in the space long enough to know that many models have worked, many things have been successful. But for me personally, being at the forefront of showing that new business models can work is really important. Although I don't know necessarily how the ecosystem is emerging, I don't necessarily know if social entrepreneurship and social, like venture philanthropy and impact investment, is going to take off in this region. From my own personal experience, I know that climate change directly affects my life every day. There's a dramatic need for better educational outcomes, whether we're talking about early childhood education or K-12 or higher education in Southeast Asia, in China, in this region. And I'm just like slammed in the face every day with the reality of the problem. So what else can we do, right? I mean, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? I don't know, but that's what drives me. The energy is there, and I'm just like, I want to do this. I just believe in myself enough that at some point, I'm going to be okay, and I'll be hopefully be a part of pioneering this industry and pioneering this sector.
What is the value add of yourself, of myself here at this time?
I wrestle with this question all the time. It's a really difficult one for me. I'm 36 years old. My entire career has been in Asia. I've spent 6 months working in Canada after I graduated from university, and that's it. Yeah. All my resources are here, all my network, all of my track record is in this part of the world. My understanding of the market, even the way that I do business, the way that I approach business relationships, is fundamentally driven by my experience in China, my experience in Singapore, and now my experience here. Like, even if I was, as we sort of talked about, like the way that I search for entrepreneurial opportunities is I look for people who've already kind of got something started and I want to join and amplify what they've done. I would be really hesitant to go into a business, and I would certainly never insist like, oh, I'm only going to come on if you make me a co-founder, right? Co-founder is just a name. It's just a term, right? I mean, it doesn't have any implication around your equity percentage or your commitment to the business. And actually, if you have some random white guy as your co-founder in an Indonesian startup or in an African startup, you probably take away from the narrative and take away from the storytelling of that business when you're going out and you're selling to customers and you're selling to investors. And,
That's interesting.
I don't actually want to dilute the power of an authentic story started by someone who really is solving something that's personal to them. I want to come in and I just want to contribute and amplify and build them up.
I'm like you in that I've been here. My first foray was 95 to 96 as an exchange student. Fell in love with the region. Like, it didn't matter which city I was in. I was just like, I want to be here. And I spent a lot of money on plane tickets trying to come back. Got my MBA, finally made my way back full time. No parachute. Like, literally, I landed like a rock out of the sky and just like woke up days like, what am I going to do now? And over the course of the last 19 years, I'm still, what I love about it is I'm just constantly learning. And I think it requires to do what we just talked about, to overcome that barrier of being the white guy in Asia, which had a stereotype, expat, doesn't know anything, like it just, you have to maintain a constant curiosity about the people, the cultures, the history, the language, even if you don't speak to them, even if you don't know them, you haven't researched them that well, but you're just constantly curious, and you're also refining your tools to provide value to those that you're working with, whether they're I call them half-pats. They made their career here, but they're not the expats highly paid. They're here because this feels right. And to solve real problems. I think there's a lot of barriers to that if you're from outside of and that doesn't matter if you're from Indonesia, Jakarta, trying to understand what they're experiencing in Bali, or you are coming from London trying to understand the same thing. Like, you have to spend time with the people you want to, or the systems, or the food chain that you want to elevate or solve.
My friends talk to me and they're like, Chris, you're the guy. It's like, whatever, when you look at a situation and you have a range of options or choices that you can make, you always make the most difficult choice, the most frustrating, challenging, one that almost makes the least amount of sense, right? It's like, I spent 10 years in China, I paid my dues, I was really like desirable in the job market, and that's the moment that I left. And then I go into a new place, whether it's Kenya or Vietnam or whatever. And I think, I don't know why that is. It's not something I can really rationalize and explain, but it's true. I want to be on the frontier, and Asia is the frontier. Asia is the future of so many industries, so many challenges that we face in the world. And I've been blessed to be here. I mean, I've been blessed in so many ways because, when I first came over in 2007, 2008, 2009, I was sort of starting my career and I was getting some momentum. All my friends back home couldn't get a job. They were laid off. There was, the financial crisis and the recession, and they were stagnating. They were working in Starbucks, and I was out here in Asia, getting opportunities that I would never have if I had stayed home. And I think that has kind of stuck with me,
Entrepreneurship itself can be very uncomfortable. How do you keep yourself grounded in this space? Really, you haven't found your success yet. You haven't found your traction that you're looking for. You're constantly seeking. There's got to be downs. How do you work your way through that?
I have invested a lot of mental energy in becoming very self-aware, and what actually, I don't know, I haven't had my success yet. I haven't necessarily found happiness or enlightenment in life or whatever, but I have systematically understood and identified the things that don't make me happy. And I also have been through tremendously difficult moments in my personal life that will eclipse any challenge, any difficult moment in my career. And I draw strength, I actually really draw strength from those dark moments in my personal life, knowing that I was really at this point and hey, I'm okay. I'm still here and I'm still growing and I'm still learning. And whatever my career throws at me, whatever entrepreneurship throws at me, I can definitely get through that.
You're talking to someone who's on a similar path to you 10 years ago, finding their way, looking for their future in this space. What are 3 tips you'd give them when it comes to trying to find the co-founder, find that core team so that you can leverage your experience, your tool set to have an impact on the world?
The first thing I would say is that no matter who you are, no matter what experience you have, no matter what background you have, you're going to screw up multiple times before you get it right. I haven't gotten it right yet, and I've already screwed up a few times. So you need to be prepared for that. And in order to be prepared for that, you have to have a base level of financial security. You don't have to be wealthy, you don't have to have made it and exited, but you have to know that you can cover your own lifestyle for sort of 6 months, 12 months, because if you can't, and you're trying to deal with the ups and downs of starting a new company or going into a new market that you've never been exposed to or whatever it is, those things will overwhelm you, and actually you might be so tied into the success or non-success of the venture that you're not able to escape because you can't provide for yourself if it doesn't work out. And I've been through a few experiences now that didn't work out in the end for me personally, but I knew that if I stepped away or if things didn't work out, I would be okay. I could have time, I could have the resources to sort of like process the situation, gather myself, look for the next venture. The second thing I would say is really that you have to deeply understand what you're doing, what you want to do, and why you want to be an entrepreneur at all. Because the last reason that I think anyone should become an entrepreneur is to become wealthy or to become rich, because it is not the path to wealth and riches. So you have to deeply understand what you want. In my case, it's about agency. It's about controlling my own destiny, not wanting to work for others, wanting to dictate my own schedule, wanting to dictate the problems that I focus on, wanting to choose who I work with and when I work with them. Maybe that leads me to my third thing, if there's 3 things. I can't recommend this. This is not a universal prescription, but in my experience, I think a lot of people get really caught up in the fantasy of being in entrepreneurship too early in their life. They're excited by the title. Oh, I can be a VP when I'm 24, or I can be a co-founder of a company when I have no experience in life. And they go out and they start something and they think, oh, I'll learn things that I would never learn if I was working for a corporate when I'm an entrepreneur. But the problem is that you don't have a network, you don't have any resilience, you don't have any savings, you don't have really anything except for energy and enthusiasm. Yeah. And when you get your first failure or your second failure, it's so hard to pick up the pieces. You don't know what's there. I would never recommend anyone to go out and start a company when they're 22 and follow their dreams and follow your passion. I think we put a lot of emphasis on youth and the young entrepreneur, and we think that it's a waste of time to go and work for a company, but that maturity that you develop just by living and working for a little bit longer, it can really be the backbone of your resilience as an entrepreneur.